The Trainer Tower. It was originally introduced in the post-game of Fire Red and Leaf Green, and it's a very peculiar and mysterious place. Let's start with its map. There's nothing strange about it when playing as usual, although as a child I found it interesting that the route next it is full of psychics with cryptic and enigmatic dialogues for no apparent reason. However, if we check the internal data, we can see that beyond the edges of the map, there's a huge area of unreachable water terrain, something rather atypical in these games that usually leave only a few tiles of margin for the map to breathe and keep the limits out of sight to the player. This vast and unreachable sea really gives the feeling that there was something else planned for the last island of the game, leaving that area of the map empty as it was cut out of the final versions. Considering the size of the setting, is it possible that the Battle Frontier was originally going to be introduced there, but was scrapped at the last minute and instead scheduled for Emerald? That could suit quite well the motto of Seven Island as Quest Island of Infinity. And the mysterious words of one of the mediums, we will meet many others and be linked to each other by a strange power. Maybe after fixing the network machine, that hypothetical battle frontier of the CB Island archipelago could connect to the one in Emerald to unlock an unparalleled challenge that could do justice to the play's title. In the end, we only got the Trainer Tower, a curious challenge that feels a bit incomplete but still has some secrets, like the mysterious NPC that we met when we clear it, with a character sprite that only appears here, and at least for me that only reinforces the feeling that there was going to be much more in store for this location. It's also the only spot in all the games where we can find several shiny Pokemon programmed for the trainers, a burglar with a Meowth, twins with an Espeon and a fisherman with a Seeking. My headcanon is that the burglar stole that famous Pokemon, the fisherman caught it with the chain fishing methods that increase shiny odds in some distant region, and the twins maybe worked together to make the soft resets at twice the speed. Although those are just fantasies of my childish mind. The real thing is the curious way this battle building works, because in contrast to the ones we could see in other regions, it doesn't focus on the number of victories but on the speed, like some sort of speedrun integrated in the game itself, in which we have to clear all the floors and defeat the opponents in the shortest time possible. But did you know that the actual game hides a secret Pokemon specially built to obliterate this challenge? Back to Kanto on the Sea Gallop Ferry on Cinnabar Island, an NPC from the lab trades you an electrode for Raichu. This way, if you catch a level 3 Pikachu in the Viridian Forest and immediately evolve it with a Thunderstone, we can make the trade and get one of the most deliriously under-leveled Pokemon in the entire franchise, a level 3 Electrode. And in this generation it knows the move Sonic Bomb at that level. In the Trainer Tower, the opponents have the same level as your team, and with an Electrode, one of the fastest Pokemon in the game, you will outspeed any rival at that level. And with a move that always inflicts 20 HP damage, it will one-shot most of its enemies. In the Japanese versions of Black and White 2, one of the paths to Victory Road is blocked by a Zoroark. When you defeat the champion, that path is unlocked, and if you then go there and follow Zoroark, it will lead you to the ruins of Anne's castle. But did you know that if you stop following it and go back on your steps, Zoroark will return to its original spot, saying only its previous dialogue before you clear the leak, and thus blocking your progress forever? We must assume it was a bug, but it almost seems like it was intentional, as if Zoroark was going to give you a chance to go and meet Anne, but seeing that your doubts make you back off, it comes to the conclusion that you are not the right person, the hero of truth who would never let doubts hold you back. A similar case occurs, once again, after the journey through CB Island, a place full of nostalgic mysteries and feelings. And the goal? To find the legendary ruby and sapphire that are waiting somewhere in the vast archipelago. When you manage to do so, something seems to change in the Kanto region. At last we are worthy of going inside the cerulean cave to challenge the being that threatened the whole world. The Elite Four is inspired by the feat, doing an intense training that leads them to challenge you with much stronger teams next time, and of course, your childhood friend is not willing to be less, waiting for a rematch. But in the CB Islands, a legendary Pokemon was following your feeds and at that moment decided to follow you to Kanto to give you a chance to catch it. After repairing the network machine, Suicune, Raikou, or Entei will start roaming the region, wandering around as usual for them. The legendary that shows up will be determined by none other than the starter you chose, specifically the one that has a type advantage against it. Hunting them, as you know, is not an easy task, as they change their route every time you move through the map. But in this generation, they have a rather creepy quirk. As always, this Pokemon will fly on the first turn, so the ideal way to catch them is to use your Master Ball, but if you waste it, you can send the Pokemon with Shadow Tag, Arena Trap, or Mew-Look to stop it. If not for the fact that two of them have Roar, a move that forces you to flee from combat. And due to a strange bug, for some weird reason, if the Pokemon gets to use Roar, the battle will end and the legendary will disappear from the map, to never appear roaming again in that save. But is it really a bug in the coding? Or maybe it's once again the game's method to show us the disappointment of the legendary who followed us from a distant land believing that we were the right ones, only to discover that we chickened out and fled at the first opportunity due to a simple roar? Whitney is one of the most memorable gym leaders in the series, but she still has secrets to reveal. Did you know that her design and character are both inspired by a baseball player? There are several traits that point to that, like her uniform and her normal type, since baseball is the most practiced and mainstream sport in Japan. There's even an official artwork from the second generation in which she appears playing it with her Apom. Don't ask me why she doesn't have that Pokemon in her team. It would have been perfect as her picture, although you already know the odd mysticism that Gold and Silver had with their new regional Pokemons, but that doesn't make it Say's Pokemon, Miltank, any less appropriate, as baseballs were traditionally made of cowhide, which explains, in a delirium of wit, the Pokemon's and this battle's signature move, Rollout, which mimics how the ball spins around at high speed when it's... The Pokemon is a living baseball. It's a well-known secret that her gym is shaped like a Clefairy when you look it from above, but if you think about it now, with the position of her apprentices, it could as well be seen as a particular practice field, with her team of young girls on their bases, and the closest one ready to throw the ball for Whitney to swing. Even the gym leader's tantrum when she loses could mirror a talented but bad-tempered athlete, until a teammate knocks some sense into her and she hands over the playing bat, which, by the way, is also shaped like a baseball field. You know, a baseball diamond. Another interesting place is Brock's gym in Pewter City. In Pokemon Let's Go, we can see some sprinklers on the ceiling, a reference to what happened in Ash's battle against Brock in the anime. In the same game, Brock appears in Celadon City, lamenting that all the girls in the gym have rejected him, being the first time in the games that this character's habit of flirting with girls is mentioned, as until now that wasn't a shared trait with his anime counterpart. Pokemon Yellow was the first ultimate version, so to speak, of the franchise, and this could become a tradition that was repeated in the next 3 generations, but Yellow is somewhat different from the others. Rather than expanding the game's content or fixing bugs as the rest of third versions would do, the special edition aimed to create a more anime-like experience, using the hype the series was building in the heart of the Pokemon boom to reach new audiences for the next generation. You know, the perfect excuse for the youngsters of the time who were fans of the cartoons and wanted to try the games. So it's interesting how Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which are usually considered Yellow remakes, kept that spirit, adding new references to the first seasons of the anime and its movies so many years later. For example, Professor Oak's tendency to speak with rhymes, a trait we haven't seen in any other game that is inspired by the poems he's a fan of saying in the anime. Another reference linking Brock's anime and game versions appeared in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. In those, after beating Red, you can get the phone numbers of the gym leaders, and some of them will trade Pokemon with you. Brock offers you his Raiden, built to battle water Pokemon, as it knows Thunderfang, and it's equipped with a Pasho Berry that halves the damage of moves with that type. But the most fascinating part is that in return he asks for a bonsai. This is not only a nod to the baby bonsai he nurses during the advanced series of the anime, as it could also be a reference to the leader's dream of becoming a Pokemon breeder specialized in babies, considering that bonsai's line is known for being hydrophobic, which is why the baby is constantly crying to expel the excess of water of its body. The fact that Brock trades it for a Pokemon specialized in battle against water types is quite curious. But speaking of water and crybabies, Misty, the other former traveling partner of Ash, also has a reference to her anime counterpart. In these games, if you bring a Togepi to her gym and interact with it, it suddenly begins crying softly.